The alien queen, Zara, stood at the edge of her command deck, staring out at the stars. Her fleet, the most feared in the galaxy, was ready for anything. Her soldiers, all women, were fierce, strong, and trained for battle. They had fought in countless wars, always emerging victorious. But despite their strength and reputation, there was still one thing they faced that troubled her: mockery. Zara had heard the whispers, the jokes. The galaxy laughed at her army, calling it nothing more than a group of women who couldn't possibly be a real threat. But none of that mattered to her. She had faced mockery before, and she had always proved her enemies wrong. This time, though, things were different. The mocking words had come from someone unexpected. A human, the human ambassador, named Derek, had arrived at the alien council to discuss peace treaties. But as soon as he saw Zara's forces, he laughed. Then at her army, and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Your army's a joke. All females," he said, snickering. "How could such an army possibly fight? The galaxy has never seen a real military force led by women. I doubt you even know how to fight." The room fell silent. Zara's eyes narrowed, her anger rising. Could feel the tension in the air. Her soldiers, standing proudly behind her, exchanged uneasy glances. They had heard such things before. But to hear them from a human ambassador, someone who didn't even understand their true strength, was an insult. Derek continued to mock her army, his voice full of arrogance. "What are you going to do, send them all at once? Are they even strong enough to hold a weapon? I'd like to see how they can handle a real battle." Zara's patience wore thin. She could feel her generals behind her, their hands resting on the hilt of their weapons, ready to draw them if needed. But Zara held them back. She would not let anger dictate her actions. Instead, she smiled, calm and collected. The queen stepped forward, her tall figure commanding attention. "You think my army is a joke, human?" she asked, her voice steady but full of power. "I have led them into battle more times than you can count. They are warriors more skilled than any you've ever faced. If you believe they are weak, then I invite you to test that belief." Derek's laughter died down as he looked at her, his smirk fading into uncertainty. "You're serious?" he asked, his voice faltering for the first time. "You want me to fight? You and your women? You really think your forces can stand up to the might of the human military?" Zara's smirk grew. She had always enjoyed proving her enemies wrong, and this would be no different. "I am serious. If you believe we are weak, then I challenge you to a test. We will face your human fleet, and you will see firsthand what my army is capable of." Derek looked around the room. The alien council members, many of whom had quietly agreed with his earlier comments, now seemed uncertain. They had underestimated Zara's resolve. Derek tried to cover his discomfort with bravado, but the words didn't come out as confidently as before. "Well then, you want to test your army against us?" he said, his voice louder now, trying to regain his confidence. "Fine, I'll take you up on your challenge. We'll see how your army holds up in battle." The room buzzed with whispers. The council members watched in silence, waiting for the outcome. Zara's generals exchanged glances. They had heard of human arrogance before, but now they saw it firsthand. It was clear that the humans didn't take them seriously, and that would be their downfall. Zara's eyes never left Derek. "Very well," she said calmly. "Prepare your fleet. But be warned, this won't be a battle you'll easily forget." Derek, now determined to prove himself right, nodded sharply. "You'll regret this. I'll show you what a real army looks like." With that, he turned and left the room, calling for his officers to prepare for the challenge. The alien queen and her generals watched him go, their minds already working on the strategy that would prove the human ambassador wrong. Zara wasn't just going to win this battle. She was going to make sure the galaxy never forgot how wrong they had been about her and her army. As the door closed behind Derek, Zara turned to her generals, her face serious but calm. "Prepare for battle," she commanded. "We will show them that strength doesn't come from numbers. It comes from unity, skill, and leadership." Her generals nodded, their faces hardening with determination. They knew that the queen was right. The strength of their army was in their bondwomen who had fought side by side, trained together, and proven their worth over and over again. Now, they would show the humans that there was more to being a warrior than what they could see on the outside. Zara's thoughts were focused on one thing: proving the human ambassador wrong. And she was ready to do whatever it took to make that happen. The galaxy would soon learn that it wasn't about gender or numbers. It was about strength. And her army would prove that they had more than enough of it. Zara stood on the command deck of her flagship, her eyes locked onto the holographic map of the galaxy. Her generals were gathered around her, each with their arms crossed, waiting for their queen's orders. The tension in the room was thick. The challenge had been set, and now they had to prepare for what was coming. The humans had underestimated them, and that was a mistake Zara was eager to capitalize on. Queen Zara, one of her most trusted generals, Kira, spoke up. Her voice was steady, filled with respect. "We know their fleet is large, but they are overconfident. They believe they can crush us easily, but we know better." Zara nodded slowly. She was already thinking ahead, her mind sharp and calculating. Yes, the human ambassador believes that numbers and brute strength will win the day, but they are wrong. We will fight with strategy, speed, and precision. We will not let them overwhelm us. The room was silent as her words sunk in. Zara had been in countless battles before, but this one felt different. She had to prove that her army was not just a group of women, it was a force to be reckoned with. "We will fight the way we always do," Zara continued, her voice calm but firm. "We will use the terrain to our advantage, strike fast, and retreat before they can react. The key to this battle will be unpredictability. The human fleet expects us to charge in with full force. They will be shocked when we don't." Kira raised an eyebrow. "You want us to avoid direct confrontation?" "Exactly," Zara said. "We will not engage in a battle of strength. We will hit their weak points, their blind spots and cause chaos. If we can break their morale, the rest of the battle will be ours." Another general, Vera, who had fought by Zara's side for years, spoke up. "The humans think we are weak because we are all women, but they are blind to our real strength. We have been fighting together for so long that we know each other better than they could ever imagine. This battle will show them that our unity is our power." Zara smiled at Vera's words. Her generals were right. The human ambassador had made a grave mistake by underestimating them. He thought that the strength of an army came from sheer numbers or physical power. But Zara knew that true strength came from trust, skill, and the bond shared between soldiers. "Are not just soldiers," Zara said, her voice rising with confidence. "We are a sisterhood. We fight for each other, and we will fight for victory. We will show the humans that strength is not defined by gender or size. It is defined by will, skill, and unity.
Oh.
Let us prepare." The generals nodded in agreement, their faces hardening with determination. Each of them had trained their entire lives for this moment. They had fought in countless wars, faced impossible odds, and survived against enemies much larger and stronger than themselves. Now, they would fight to prove a point, to show the galaxy that their army, led by women, was unstoppable. Zara turned to the holomap and pointed to a section of the galaxy near the human fleet's position. "This is where we will strike first," she said, her finger tracing the path she had carefully planned. "We will take out their communications satellites. Without them, they will be blind. They will not be able to coordinate their forces, and we will have the upper hand." Kira stepped forward, her face focused. "Once we disable their communication, we will be able to move freely, hitting them where they least expect it." Zara nodded. "Exactly. Once we disable their communication, we will move in for the next phase. We'll target their supply ships, those carrying fuel and ammunition. Without supplies, their fleet will be unable to sustain themselves." Vera leaned over the map, her eyes scanning the routes. "And what of their flagship? You think it's worth attacking directly?" Zara's gaze hardened as she looked at the flagship's position. "The flagship is powerful, but it is not invincible. We will avoid it for now. We don't want to engage in a battle we don't need to. Let the flagship come to us. When it does, we will be ready." Kira's expression was serious. How do you suggest we do that?" Zara smiled, a glint of pride in her eyes. "We will use their overconfidence against them. We will strike when they least expect it. We'll give them false information, make them believe we're retreating, and then when they follow, we'll ambush them." The generals looked at each other, impressed by the Queen's brilliant strategy. Zara had always been a master tactician, but this plan was something else. They could already see how it would unfold in their minds. Zara's voice was calm, but full of authority. "This battle will be ours. We will show the humans that they made a mistake by underestimating us. But most importantly, we will prove that our strength is in our unity. Together, we are unbeatable." Her generals stood tall, their pride and determination shining in their eyes. They had always believed in their queen's leadership, and now they had a plan that would make the human fleet regret their mockery. As the meeting came to an end, Zara gave her final orders. "Prepare the fleet. We strike tomorrow. Humans believe they have the upper hand. Let them laugh while they still can." The room erupted with murmurs of approval. Each general quickly began making their way to their ships, ready to carry out Zara's plan. The Queen remained standing by the holomap, her mind still sharp and focused. Tomorrow, the battle would begin. And Zara was ready to show the galaxy that her all-female army was more than just a force to be reckoned with. They were a force that would change the galaxy forever. The day of the battle had arrived. Zara stood on the bridge of her flagship, her eyes scanning the galaxy before her. Her heart was calm, her mind focused. She had prepared for this moment, and now it was time to put her plan into action. "Status." "Report," Zara said, her voice steady as she turned toward her chief officer. "Lyra, everything is ready, Your Majesty," Lyra responded. "All ships are in position. We've successfully disabled the human fleet's communication satellites, just as planned. They have no idea what's coming." Zara nodded, satisfied with the progress. She had anticipated the humans' overconfidence. They would never expect an attack so precise, so calculated. "Good. Let's move forward." With a sharp motion, Zara gestured to her generals who were standing nearby. "We hit them hard and fast. We attack their supply ships first. No mercy. We need to break their spirit before they have a chance to retaliate." The plan was simple. The humans had the numbers, but Zara had the skill and speed. Our army would strike swiftly, disappearing before the humans could respond. They would leave behind nothing but confusion and fear. The first phase of the attack began. Zara's fleet, small but deadly, darted through the darkness of space. The human fleet, still unaware of the danger lurking just beyond their reach, moved in their usual formation, expecting an easy victory. They didn't realize that their supply lines critical to their survival were about to be cut. Zara's fleet reached the first supply convoy, and in an instant the battle began. The alien ships unleashed a barrage of laser fire, hitting the human supply vessels with surgical precision. Explosions rocked the convoy as Zara's fleet moved with perfect coordination. Quickly taking out their targets, human ships scrambled, trying to organize a defense, but they were too slow. The aliens had already moved to the next target. It was as if they were ghosts, striking and disappearing before the humans even realized what was happening. Zara's generals led the charge, their ships darting through space with deadly agility. They knew exactly where to hit and when, leaving the humans confused and scattered. The human fleet had no time to react. They couldn't understand how the aliens were moving so fast, attacking from all directions without warning. On the human flagship, Captain Derek watched the chaos unfold. His face was twisted in disbelief. "What's happening? Where are they?" he demanded, looking at the officers around him. "They're everywhere, Captain," one officer replied, panic rising in his voice. "We can't keep up with them. They're too fast." Derek clenched his fists, frustration boiling inside him. How could they be losing to an army of women? His entire fleet, designed for overwhelming strength and power, was being outclassed by enemies they hadn't even seen coming. But Zara wasn't finished yet. She had one more move planned, one that would shake the human fleet to its core. After disabling the supply ships, she ordered her fleet to pull back. They would leave the humans in disarray, thinking they had been outmatched. But in truth, Zara was setting the stage for the final blow. "We've done our job," Zara said, her voice calm as she watched her fleet retreat. "Now we wait." Her generals stood beside her, watching the human fleet struggle to regroup. The confusion on the human ships was clear. They were disorganized, unsure of where the aliens had gone or where the next attack would come from. "I want them to think we're retreating," Zara said. "Let them come after us. They'll think they've won." It's expected, the human fleet followed. Derek, still furious, gave the order to chase after the retreating alien ships. "Don't let them get away," he yelled, full speed ahead. The human ships, now fully in pursuit, followed Zara's fleet into a nearby asteroid field. The area was treacherous, filled with sharp rocks and dangerous debris. It was the perfect place for an ambush. "Now," Zara said, her voice cold and determined, "let's show them what true strength is." With a sharp command, Zara's fleet turned. The alien ships emerged from behind the asteroids, attacking from all angles. It was a flawless move. The human fleet, caught off guard, found themselves in the middle of a deadly trap. Their ships, unprepared for such a sudden onslaught, were torn apart one by one. Derek's voice cracked as he ordered his fleet to fight back. "Get into formation. Hold your ground." But it was too late. The aliens were already too close, too fast, too skilled. The human ships couldn't keep up, and the aliens seemed to appear out of nowhere, their weapons relentless and precise. As the battle raged on, Zara watched from the bridge, her face stoic. She knew that victory was in their grasp. Her army had already broken the human morale. The confusion, the fear, it was all part of the plan. The human fleet was no longer a threat. They were simply prey. "We've won," Lyra said quietly. Her eyes fixed on the screen as the human ships began to retreat. Zara smiled, though it was not a smile of happiness. It was a smile of satisfaction. She had done exactly what she had set out to prove that her army, though underestimated, was unstoppable. "Not yet," Zara replied. "We'll finish this once and for all. Follow them. We'll make sure they remember this day." As the alien fleet followed the retreating humans, Zara's generals exchanged glances. They had shown the galaxy their true power, but they were not done yet. There was still work to be done. Derek, now on the run, could only watch as his fleet was torn apart. The realization hit him hard. His mockery, his arrogance, it had all been a mistake. And now, his entire fleet would pay the price. Zara's fleet, sleek and swift, moved in for the final strike. The human fleet was broken, their strength shattered. The alien queen had won. But more than that, she had sent a message. Strength was not about numbers or size. It was about skill, unity, and the will to fight. The humans had learned that lesson the hard way. The battle was far from over, but Zara knew that the human fleet had already suffered a crushing blow. The alien queen stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as the human ships struggled to regroup. The chaos in their ranks was evident, but Zara wasn't ready to celebrate just yet. There was still work to be done. And she would not be satisfied until she had proven her point beyond doubt. "We have them on the run," Kira said, her voice steady as she looked at the tactical display. "But we can't let them escape. We need to finish this." Zara nodded. She had learned long ago that in battle, hesitation could be deadly. If the humans were allowed to regroup, they might have a chance to retaliate. She wasn't going to give them that opportunity. "Move the fleet forward," Zara commanded. "We'll hit them again, but this time we do it in waves. We break them piece by piece." Her generals exchanged determined glances, knowing what was at stake. The humans had underestimated them, but now the tables had turned. Zara's fleet was small compared to the human forces, but it didn't matter. The alien queen had always believed that skill and precision could overcome brute force. And today, her army was proving it. The alien ships spread out across the battlefield, each one moving with deadly purpose. They were fast, agile, and coordinated in a way that the human fleet couldn't match. The human ships, still in disarray, tried to regroup, but it was too late. Zara's fleet was already on the offensive. "This is it," Zara said, her voice calm as she watched her fleet advance. "Now we break them." The first wave of the attack came suddenly, as alien ships darted in and out of the human fleet, firing their weapons with pinpoint accuracy. The humans, still reeling from the earlier assault, struggled to defend themselves. Their ships, large and bulky, couldn't keep up with the speed of the alien vessels. Explosions ripped through the human fleet as Zara's forces struck there, weapons tearing through shields and hulls. On the human flagship, Captain Derek was growing desperate. His face was pale as he watched his fleet fall apart around him. "Why aren't they following the rules?" he shouted, his voice full of frustration. "They're attacking from all directions. We can't even get a shot off before they're gone again." His officers looked at him helplessly, unable to offer any solutions. The alien ships seemed to appear out of nowhere, always one step ahead, always out of reach. "They're not fighting fair," Derek said, his anger rising. "This isn't how a battle is supposed to go. We have the numbers. We should be winning." But Derek's words were empty. His fleet was falling apart, and no amount of anger or frustration could change that. Zara, watching the human flagship, felt no sympathy. The humans had mocked her army, underestimated her forces, and now they were paying the price. She had warned them, and they had chosen to ignore her. It was their mistake, and she intended to make. Sure, they never forgot it. "Prepare for the second wave," Zara ordered. "We strike again. Make them feel the pressure." Her generals moved swiftly, sending orders to their fleets. The alien ships formed up, ready to strike a second time. This wave would be even more coordinated, more aggressive. They would not give the humans a chance to recover. The second wave hit harder than the first. Zara's fleet, already in position, pounced on the human ships like a pack of predators. The human fleet, still trying to regroup, found themselves completely surrounded. Zara's forces closed in from all sides, attacking with unrelenting force. The human ships tried to fight back, but their weapons couldn't match the precision and speed of the alien attacks. In the midst of the chaos, Derek knew they were losing. His fleet was being torn apart, and there was no way to stop it. The humans had underestimated the alien queen and her army, and now they were paying the price for that mistake. "We have to fall back," Derek shouted, panic in his voice. "We can't win this fight. We need to retreat." But it was too late. The alien queen's forces had already pushed them into a corner. The humans had no escape. On the battlefield, Zara could see the tide turning in her favor. The human ships, once full of confidence, were now desperate. Their morale was shattered. The alien queen had done exactly what she set out to do. She had proven that her army was not to be underestimated. She had proven that no matter the odds, they could stand tall and fight back with power, skill, and unity. As the battle raged on, Zara's fleet continued to press the attack, dismantling the human forces piece by piece. The humans were no longer a threat, they were a broken, scattered force. Their ships no longer organized or effective. Derek, standing on the bridge of his flagship, watched in disbelief as his fleet crumbled before him. "How could this happen?" he whispered to himself. "We were supposed to be the ones who won." Zara's fleet pressed on, their movements flawless, their strategy sound. The human fleet was disoriented and disorganized, their communications in chaos. The alien queen had made sure of that. She had outsmarted them, outmaneuvered them, and now she was on the verge of victory. "This is the end," Zara said, her voice calm as she gave the order for the final assault. "Finish this." With that, her fleet launched a final, devastating attack on the human flagship. The human ship, once the symbol of human strength, now stood defenseless against the alien onslaught. Explosions rocked the flagship as Zara's forces tore through its defenses. Within moments, the human flagship was nothing more than a burning wreck. As the last of the human ships retreated, Zara's fleet stood victorious. The humans had been defeated, their pride shattered, their arrogance crushed. The galaxy had witnessed the power of the alien queen and her army, and it would never forget it. Zara stood tall, her gaze fixed on the wreckage of the human fleet. She had done what she promised. She had proven that strength was not about numbers or gender, it was about skill, unity, and the will to fight. "We've won," Kira said, her voice filled with pride. Zara nodded, her expression unreadable. Yes, but this battle was never just about winning. It was about sending a message. The message had been delivered. The battle had turned into a full-scale victory. Zara stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as the last remnants of the human fleet tried to flee. The once proud human ships were now scattered, damaged, and broken. The Queen's forces had proved their might in a way that no one had expected, least of all the humans. Zara's army, though smaller in number, had shown that they were more than capable of defeating the human fleet. "We've broken their defenses, Your Majesty," Kira reported, her voice filled with a mix of pride and satisfaction. "The human ships are in disarray. Most of them are retreating, but there are a few still trying to regroup." Zara nodded. "We finish this now. They will not be allowed to recover." The plan had been simple. First, disrupt the human fleets. Communications. Next, attack their supply lines, leaving them weak and vulnerable. The final step was to crush their morale, make them doubt their own strength. Zara had done exactly that. The humans had underestimated her, and now their arrogance would cost them. On the human flagship, Derek was beside himself with panic. His once strong fleet had been reduced to a shattered mess. "How did this happen?" he muttered to himself, his hands gripping the control panel tightly. "We were supposed to be the ones in control. We were supposed to win." His officers, who had once followed his orders with confidence, now looked to him for guidance, but Derek had nothing to offer. His fleet was falling apart, and there was no way to stop it. "Captain, we need to retreat," one of his officers said, his voice trembling. "We can't keep fighting like this. The Queen's forces are too strong." Derek's jaw clenched, and he slammed his fist onto the control panel in frustration. "Retreat? We can't run from this. We have to show them that we won't back down." But even as he said the words, Derek knew they were meaningless. The humans had underestimated the alien queen, and now they were paying for it. Zara's forces were too skilled, too fast, and too coordinated for the human fleet to handle. The humans had no chance. Meanwhile, Zara's fleet moved in for the final assault. The alien ships, sleek and agile, surrounded the human flagship. They moved with precision, cutting off any chance of escape. The human ships, struggling to stay in formation, had no way to defend themselves. Zara's forces moved in from all sides, attacking with overwhelming speed. "Now," Zara said, her voice calm but filled with resolve, "this ends today." Her fleet unleashed a barrage of laser fire, hitting the human ships with pinpoint accuracy. Explosions erupted across the human fleet as Zara's forces tore through their defenses. The humans fought back, but their weapons couldn't match the alien ship's speed and precision. On the human flagship, Derek gave orders to fight back, but it was clear that the battle was lost. The alien ships were everywhere, attacking from all angles, and the humans couldn't keep up. "Return fire," Derek shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of explosions and the constant shaking of the ship. "We need to retreat now."
"Captain?"
one of the officers pleaded, but Derek shook his head in disbelief. "We can't retreat. We have to stand our ground." But the truth was clear. The human fleet was already broken, and there was no way to stop the alien queen's final assault. Zara watched from the bridge of her flagship as the final human ship was disabled. The human fleet had been destroyed, their pride shattered. The alien queen's forces had won, and the humans had been forced to learn a painful lesson. "It's over," Kira said, her voice filled with satisfaction. "We've done it. The humans have been defeated." Zara stood tall, her expression unreadable. She had won, but it wasn't about the victory itself. It was about sending a message that would echo across the galaxy. "Prepare for the final strike," Zara said. "We'll show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate us." The alien fleet closed in on the last remaining human ships, their weapons aimed at the helpless targets. The humans had no defense left, no way to fight back. Zara's forces struck one last time, taking down the last of the human fleet. As the final explosions faded, Zara looked out at the wreckage. The human fleet was no more. The galaxy had witnessed the true power of her army. We've won, Kira said again, her voice full of respect. They'll never doubt us again. Zara nodded, but her eyes remained fixed on the wreckage of the human fleet. This was never about proving ourselves, she said quietly. This was about proving to the galaxy that strength comes from within, not from numbers or expectations. We fought with unity, skill, and purpose, and that is what made us unbeatable. The Alien Queen's fleet pulled away from the battlefield. The news of their victory spread across the galaxy. The humans had been defeated, and the once mocked all-female army had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy would never forget the lesson that had been learned. Strength is not defined by size, gender, or numbers. It is defined by the will to fight, the courage to lead, and the unity of those who stand together. Zara turned to her generals. We've done our part. Now let the galaxy know what we've accomplished. And so, the Alien Queen's victory was etched into the history of the galaxy. Her army, once dismissed as a joke, had become a symbol of power, skill, and unity. The galaxy would never forget the day when the Alien Queen and her all-female army proved that true strength was not about physical might, but the strength of spirit. The battle was over, and the human fleet had been wiped from the stars. Zara stood on the command deck of her flagship, watching the remains of the human ships drift in space. Her heart was calm, but her thoughts were heavy. She had won, but the victory felt bittersweet. She had proven her point, but at what cost? You did it, Your Majesty, Kira said, her voice filled with pride as she stood beside Zara. The human fleet is gone. The galaxy will know that we are a force to be reckoned with. Zara didn't respond immediately. She was deep in thought, her eyes focused on the wreckage outside. She had fought for more than just victory. She had fought to show the galaxy that her army was more than just a group of women. She had fought to show them that true strength was not about numbers or gendered it, was about unity, strategy, and willpower. The humans will never forget. This day, Zara said, her voice quiet but full of determination. But it wasn't just about defeating them. It was about proving something to the galaxy. Kira nodded, understanding. That's what they needed to see. You've taught them a lesson they'll never forget. Zara turned away from the window, her face serious. I don't want them to forget, but I also want them to understand. It's not just about defeating enemies. It's about what happens after. It's about how you lead and how you change perceptions. The Alien Queen's fleet had already begun to move away from the battlefield. Their mission was complete, but Zara's work was not done. She needed to ensure that the message had been heard, that the galaxy understood what had just happened. The humans had mocked her army, but now they knew better. Now, the galaxy knew better. Prepare a message for the galaxy, Zara ordered. We need to make sure they understand the truth of what happened here. Her generals, who had fought alongside her in this battle, began to work quickly. They set up communication channels to broadcast the message across the galaxy. Zara's words would be heard by every corner of the galaxy, by every species that had doubted her and her army. As the message was being prepared, Zara reflected on the battle. She had been calm, collected, and focused throughout the entire conflict. But now that it was over, the weight of everything began to sink in. This victory wasn't just a personal triumph. It was a victory for all the women who had ever been underestimated. For all the warriors who had been told they weren't strong enough, smart enough, or capable enough. Zara had fought not only for her army, but for every woman who had been told she couldn't lead, couldn't fight, couldn't win. She had shown the galaxy that they were wrong, Your Majesty. Kira's voice pulled Zara from her thoughts. The message is ready. Zara stood tall, her eyes filled with purpose. She walked to the communication center, where her generals were preparing to send the message to the galaxy. Yes. She took a deep breath, knowing that her words would have far-reaching consequences. This was her moment to speak, to make sure the galaxy understood. This is Queen Zara, she began, her voice strong and clear. Today, we have shown that strength is not defined by size, numbers, or gender. We have shown that true power lies in unity and skill, and in the will to fight. My army and army of women has defeated the might of the human fleet, and we have done it not because we are women, but because we are warriors. Her words echoed through the communication channels, reaching millions of ears across the galaxy. We are more than what the galaxy has believed us to be. We are strong. We are capable, and we will never back down. We will no longer be underestimated, and we will never be ignored. Let this be a lesson to all. Do not judge us by our appearance, by our numbers, or by our gender. Judge us by what we do, by the strength of our will, and by the power of our unity. Zara paused for a moment, allowing her words to sink in before she continued. Today, we have proven ourselves, and we will continue to fight for our future, for our people, and for the strength of those who stand with us. The galaxy will remember this day, and they will remember that we are not to be underestimated. The message was sent, broadcast across the stars. The silence that followed was heavy, as if the galaxy itself was taking a moment to process the Queen's words. Zara knew that it wasn't just about the battle, it was about changing the perception of her people. The galaxy would never see her army the same way again. As the transmission ended, Zara turned to her generals, who were standing behind her, waiting for her next command. They had done their part, and now it was time to move forward. We've shown them what we are capable of, Zara said, her voice calm but full of resolve. Now we must rebuild. We must show the galaxy that we are not just warriors, we are leaders, and we will lead the way forward. The generals nodded in agreement. Zara's victory was not just about defeating the humans. It was about leading her people to a future where they would no longer be judged or dismissed. She had proven that. Her army was powerful, but now it was time to show the galaxy that her people were more than just warriors. They were a force for change. As Zara's fleet continued its journey back to their homeworld, she felt a sense of peace. The battle was over, but the work had just begun. She had won, not just a war, but a battle for respect. And with that respect came the opportunity to shape the future. The galaxy had learned a lesson today. Zara would make sure they would never forget it.